Hello everybody, this is Andy Arthur Ross here, and I'm doing my analysis and anatomy of a song. Classic songs, in this case an absolute classic, Walk on the Wild Side by Lou Reed, made back in 1972. It was one of the tracks on the Transformer album produced by David Bowie. This is a little blast. Now the thing to say about this track, which I think is phenomenal, is that it's a brilliant example of how classic songs are often incredibly simple. There's only two chords really, a C and a F6, I think. A few passing chords, we've just been past them, funny enough. Apart from that, two chords the whole way through the whole song. A lot of people who are starting out in songwriting don't realise that simplicity is often all you need. The genius is in the production and the performances, which I'd like to go through now and separate some of the instruments so you can hear how it was done. So I'll just stop it there. So Lou Reed asked David Bowie to produce this. So in the studio, the way that they would probably, I'm guessing at this is a speculation as to how they might have gone about it. Bowie apparently played the guitar part, which is a very, very simple, as I said before, these two chords, C to F sharp, F6 I think. So yeah. So the guitar part. Yeah, so I can imagine Bowie playing that. I can imagine them all in the studio. Mick Ronson would have been in there too, because he co-produced it with Bowie. And someone called Richie Dharma was the drummer, an English session drummer at the time. In fact, everybody who plays on this album, on this track, is a session musician in London at that time. And so he would have come up with a beat. So he'd be saying, well, play a beat that might go along with that. So maybe this was the sort of thing he came up with. Simple. Hideously simple. Bass drum on the downbeat, the bar. Bit of brushes. And a hi-hat pedal on the offbeat. I don't think you could get much simpler if you tried. So then you add that to the guitar part, and it already is that iconic sound. It's that kind of Latin flavour that this track has. The groove is kind of Latin-y. And you can see why the vocals came later. It's got that feel. It calls out for that. It informs that, if you like. The beat, the groove suggests it. Okay, so the next bit that makes this song so outstandingly noticeable is the bass line. So Herbie Flowers was another session musician of that era in the British jazz scene, in fact. He was a bass player, and he came to the session, I think it was Trident Studios in London, to play double bass. And he came up with this simple idea. And this is the iconic bass sound, double bass sound. Let's have a listen. Let's have a listen here. Here we'll have the bass. Okay, this is where I suppose you could call it genius, but it's certainly memorable. He plays the bass line, which is really simple. I think it's a C to an F, which I don't have a bass here, but it'll be... Oh, that doesn't sound right. So let's have a listen to that. Here it comes. There it goes. Can you hear that? He had this idea of putting an electric bass playing the higher part, sliding up while the electric bass was going down, the double bass was going down. So you get One's going up while the other's going down. Terribly played. So you get the idea. Contrary to popular belief, Herbie Flowers did not, I'll just stop that, he did not do that because he got paid twice if you tracked as a session musician. Then tracking means doubling up or playing, superimposing your playing over your own playing. So you had to perform as if you were another musician. In those days, you got paid twice the session fee. People used to say that he did that because he wanted more money, but actually that's rubbish. He thought it was a great idea, and I've heard him say that himself on film. So now what we do is start putting these things together. So let's have a listen to the drums, the groove. Here we go. Okay. And let's have the guitar. Okay. All right, now let's have the bass, the iconic bass line. Now you think, that's Walking on Wild Side. That's it. That's the groove. That's the coolest groove you can imagine. And it's so much in alignment with, haven't talked about the emotion within the song and the meaning of the song, but it's so much in alignment with the cool entourage of the Warhol heroes, I think, or the superstars, Warhol's superstars, which Lou Reed used to hang around with. I think Lou was probably considered to be one of them. And the song is about these superstars, these are kind of these alternative thinkers who were pushing the boundaries of the sort of cultural norm and sort of transgender stereotypes and all that stuff. Back in those days, that was quite taboo. So this song exudes a kind of super coolness. And then of course we got the vocal. So let's have a listen to the vocal, which is basically a rap. I mean, this is like the earliest rap I can think of, because Lou Reed is not known to be a great singer technically, but he communicates brilliantly. And listen to this. This is more like a rap.
Holly came from Miami, FLA.
There's virtually no melody.
Hitchhiked away across USA.
Or if there is a melody, it's wayward.
Plucked her eyebrows on the way, shaved her legs, and then he was a she. She says, hey babe, take a walk on the wild side.
Okay.
Said, hey honey, take a walk on the wild side.
Mm-hmm.
Candy came from out on the island.
I mean, it's really weird technically, it's so wrong. But again, this is breaking boundaries. This is why he's such an important artist.
Take a walk on the wild side.
Let's hear it all together.
Said, hey babe, take a walk on the wild side. And the colored girls go do-do-do, do-do, do-do-do, 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 do-do.
Okay, so we're going to have the colored girls, as he calls them. Let's hear them. Oh, where are they? Come back. They've got to be somewhere else. Here they are. So those girls were I think they were, let's see if I can find this. They were a group of vocalists again in the UK called called Thunder Thighs actually. Dari Lalou, Karen Friedman, and Casey Singe. Probably don't get enough credit for that because it's another genius piece of production by no other than David Bowie. And when we're on the subject of David Bowie, of course we have what some people think of as one of the greatest sax solos in pop, although I have a strong bias here because it happens to be my father doing it. His name is Ronnie Ross. He was another session musician or jazz musician, well-known jazz musician in the 1960s. And Bowie used to come to our house when I was a kid and have lessons from my dad. He revered my dad's playing actually, and he pestered my father to have lessons because he was so enamoured with his playing, even as a young teenager, which he was when he came to our house.
Sax was your teacher? yeah, baritone sax player. At one time was in the top 3 in the world with Jerry Mulligan. His name's Ronnie Ross, sadly not with us anymore.
But it's quite a funny story because Bowie booked my dad, and at this point, in this era, in 1972, he was now sort of frequenting, embodying Ziggy Stardust, and would often walk around with that what avatar, I suppose you could call it. And when he booked my dad hadn't seen him since he was a teenager. And there he was, Ziggy Stardust, basically, meeting him at in the reception of Trident Studios in Soho. And I think my dad was a bit taken aback because Bowie said, "You don't recognise me, do you?" And sure enough, he was a bit shocked, to say the least. But this is the solo, my father's solo, which most people would recognise, I think. And it's interesting because I would say my dad was playing at his peak at that time in his career, and but like Herbie Flowers, it's quite funny because he often said I asked him about it, years later, and he said he got 12 quid for that session. It took him both Herbie and my father were only in there for 20 minutes, which is in and out, and yet it's such an iconic thing. The sax solo is pretty iconic. And certainly the bass line is very iconic. It is the selling point. Both of those actually big selling points for that song. Anyway, I think that's let's just finish off by listening to the solo in context, and I'll say goodbye until the next time. Okay, goodbye.
Just a footnote to say, please feel free to leave comments and to suggest songs that you might like me to listen to. If you feel like subscribing, you've enjoyed the channel, that would be fantastic. It's incredibly helpful for me. It's free, by the way. Some people don't realise that. And also the thumbs up, that's also very useful. It helps to keep the work going. And thank you very much for coming. See you another time. Bye-bye.